Well, good morning, everybody. Or if you're on the East Coast, it's going to be 1 o'clock your time. Got 10 o'clock Pacific, noon Central. Thanks for joining our special edition of webinar series today. I'll introduce myself and our guest, Dale Lathrop from SOS Inventory. Really excited to have Dale with us today, and we'll bring him on in a second so he can quickly introduce us. Let me go over some quick administrative things, but I wanted to welcome you today. It's QuickBooks Online Feature Spotlight, so we're going to be focused on inventory in QuickBooks Online Plus. And of course, SOS is the third-party app that is going to be expanding the functionality that just is not in QBO. And we'll make sure we're aligned on what is there and what's not. And then Dale will come on with SOS and show, full manufacturing, WIP, all that, build assemblies, all that stuff. So very quickly, here am I, Woody Adams, longtime product specialist with Intuit. And been with Intuit since 2004. Also still do the QBO show bi-weekly with Stacy Kildall, and you can find out more about that at radiofreeqb.com. Now, there is a link to the matrix in this deck. You should download the deck. I uploaded it into the handout section of GoToWebinar. So you should be able to download it. If for some reason you're not, I'm going to go ahead and put in my emails I do each webinar. If you have been to others, you're used to this by now. Woody_Adams at Intuit.com. There's always a couple who, for whatever reason, you're unable to download the deck. And that's okay. Just email me, and I will send it to you later today. I am recording today's session. Since we already do what I'm going to be doing in product from an item-based standpoint in the biweekly product-based business QBO Beyond the Basics webinar series, the recording that I'm going to do, I'm just going to really cut out Dale's part, because really we're here to learn more about SOS. So I'm going to get through my stuff in by 25 minutes of the hour, and then Dale will take it the rest of the way home, and I'll just be managing questions, etc. Now, let's go ahead and bring Dale on. Dale, if you can unmute yourself and just introduce yourself to the audience, I'll go on mute, and then we'll start.
Excellent. Thanks, Woody. Hi, everybody. I am Dale Lathrop from Saddle Oak Software, VP of Operations. I also work very closely with the sales and the tech support team, so you might have, if you've ever called into our line, if you've used SOS before, you probably talked to me. But I am probably one of the lead experts in SOS Inventory, been with them since 2013 and working with them ever since. Our company's been with QuickBooks Online since 2009. I've known a lot of the pro advisors that are out there from QuickBooks, as well as a lot of the staff at Intuit, so we've got a great relationship, and we really take our product to the next level. So I'm going to show you a lot about the inventory system that we have to make your lives a lot easier when it comes to that. Woody, back to you.
Yeah, and thanks, Dale, and thanks for your service, by the way, too, as I'm reading the bio. I wanted to point that out, but I also believe...
appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, you bet. And I also think, is not SOS, wasn't it OE Companion for a while? It's like one of the very first apps to integrate with QBO. I have that right still?
It was.
Yeah.
And actually, being the first app, one of the first apps, we also helped your development team do the integration piece, actually set up the integration as it was going through.
Nice.
So more apps could connect.
Okay, now awesome. So Dale's going to go on mute. I'm going to start going through. I have a few slides, and we're going to dive into product. Now, if you have questions, by all means ask them in the questions area of GoToWebinar. Remember, download the deck, ask questions. Now, for my questions, I'll try to get to them, but I just want to make sure Dale has plenty of time to show SOS. That's what we're here for today. So I might put off some of your questions to the bottom of the hour when I'm free. So just know that. Typically, I'll answer them as we're going along. So that's that. And feel free to share the recording. Get with your account manager later today. I'll send him the link. So really it's, sorry, not job costing, but inventory features, light inventory. It's first in, first out valuation method. So I just named the slide wrong. Forgive me for that. Three-sided items, though, so similar to desktop, but it's not average cost. So it's first in, first out as a valuation method. We're going to look at quantity and value adjustments. You can now partially receive against an open PO. There is a reorder point, so I can track stock status. These are some of the features that we added to QuickBooks Online Plus, over the last year or so. We do have product categories. I'll be starting there. Price rules is brand new. It's in beta, and that's in Plus. We do have progress invoicing. Maybe that's why I was thinking of job costing, so you can progressively invoice against an estimate, but most of manufacturers aren't really using an estimate. Really, it's a sales order workflow that I know Premier and Enterprise has, but SOS does support that. So we're going to be, the current availability tracking. In other words, Dale calls in and wants to buy a bunch of stuff or order stuff for me. I have 100 of them. He purchases 50. There's no way for me to know that he's going to want 50 or I can promise him 50, right? That's his visibility that he sees with SOS. But from a QBO standpoint, it's kind of like Pro, where you're just kind of in the dark about current availability or what you can promise to your customers. It's like you either have it or you don't. So that's one benefit too. And also simply, QBO does not yet track unit of measure. I mean, that's a real fundamental inventory feature set. So I'm going to be building the case where if your client wants to be mobile, right, need to be on the phone, tablet, or they're moving around a lot, I don't want you to think you're strapped to QuickBooks Premier, Manufacturing Wholesale, or Enterprise, right? You're not. You could do QBO Plus with SOS inventory, right? And that's going to even unlock more feature sets than even the Enterprise with advanced inventory would have. Okay, so I just wanted to, that's kind of my theme as I'm going through and showing you, but I want to align on the current features in QBO Plus so you know when your client would need SOS or when they would not. And we'll go over some basic reporting too. I'm going to go through settings, right? And where you try it, we go to the item list. We'll break down an item. I want to mention the two-sided item, and then we're going to do a quick inventory workflow and some reporting, right? Now, there is a bundle item, which is akin to a group item in desktop. So there is that, but that's not a build assembly. And then feature gaps filled by SOS that Dale's going to cover. Again, build assemblies. That's a major reason why people choose SOS, but there's also manufacturing process, WIP, different valuation methods outside of just FIFO, like so that have landed cost, standard cost, the real critical ones, I think, sales order fulfillment, and then several other things, advanced purchasing. And by that, I mean also better visibility of the stock status at a moment in time across multiple warehouses. So this is where SOS, this is all in their wheelhouse, okay? And that's what Dale's going to run through as well. He was telling me before we started about a bunch of other cool things he's going to go over as also. So I am in the typical file I use for the product-based series, Planet Paws Pet Supplies, right? It's a kind of grooming, boarding, so they do have some service items, but mostly we're selling inventory for dogs and cats and things like that, right? I'm going to go to the gear icon. We're going to go to Accountant Settings. Hopefully you're all seeing my screen. I'm showing and still sharing, and we are recording now. So just a couple settings. I'm not really going to lean in on the job costing features much, but when you go to sales, this is where you're going to turn the inventory on, right? So you have a SKU column. You can use that for tracking a manufacturer part number. I've heard of that. Remember, QuickBooks Online Plus, besides requiring that level of QBO for inventory, it is also required if you have clients that are just reselling. So purchasing something and selling it using the same item or double-sided items. Two-sided items is how you might refer to them in desktop. That's also a plus level feature. So Simple Start and Essentials are just single-sided items, right? So anyway, that's like my sleeper hit for Plus over Essentials is the fact that you can turn on double-sided items, and I'll show you where to go for that. So price rules is in beta. That's where you want to turn that on. It is a sales setting right now. We moved it from advanced. Some of you might have remembered it in there. And then here's where I track inventory quantity on hand, right? If you click on the question mark, it's going to tell you about FIFO. It's first in, first out valuation method, right? So you have that. You also have the ability, if you are creating estimates as like a sales order workaround, you can invoice in a multiple way or periodic way against estimates, like progressively until the estimate's closed, right? But a real true sales order fulfillment workflow, that's going to be SOS. The other thing I wanted to mention from an item standpoint, so you're going to turn inventory on under products and services. Fair enough? Expenses. This is because QBO Plus supports two-sided items for non-inventory parts, right? Or service items. You can check off the box to show the items table on your cost forms. When you're purchasing items to pass it through, tag it to a job, whatever, you want to check off this box at all because it adds the name field to the cost forms, right? And if you want to make it billable, tag it to a customer, you check those off as well. We cover these mostly in the service-based business, but it happens where you might want to do that. So I want to make sure you're aware of that. And really nothing more in advanced anymore regarding item-based activity. Purchase orders, also plus level only feature. And for at least a year, it might even be 18 months now, QBO Plus supports partial receiving against an open PO. And I'll show you that. You can close the lines as you go if you want. Okay, so those are the main settings to consider. Now let's go to the actual products and services list. I go there under the gear icon as just a creature of habit. However, if you go to sales, it's one of the tabs, right? In the all sales window, if you will, you got products and services. So right off the bat, and I've already canned this, I got 3 low in stock and 1 out of stock. So you do have some visibility based on reorder points at the item level. Now let's quickly go to the low stock, and I have some pet furniture that's coming low, right? I'm going to edit the raised dog bed. We'll look at that. So inventory parts, like in desktop, and I'm assuming like in SOS, they're 3-sided, right? I'm hitting inventory asset account, which will be incremented or decremented depending if I'm purchasing it or selling it. Revenue as well. Here are my price rules. We'll look at that. I have Dale's discount for today. We're going to drill in there, but let me close it for now. Of course, you can make them taxable, but I'm hitting revenue, inventory asset, and cost of goods sold. Now, like in QuickBooks Desktop, if you're used to it, when do you suppose COGS is debited? Right, when you sell it. So if you're wanting COGS to be hit when you purchase it, that's a 2-sided item, and that is supported. I'm not really going to show that here, but that is supported in QBO Plus, where I can turn on the purchase side as well and have one item reflect both cost of goods sold or expense as well as revenue on forms. So I can use it on a check or a bill, credit card expense, and I can use it on a sales receipt invoice. Same item, right? That's supported at the plus level. Here with inventory, I'm hitting 3 sides: inventory asset, COGS, revenue, but cost of goods sold will be debited when I sell it. Now, there is another item type, because you have, even though we call them products and services, you have inventory, I have non-inventory, that's what I was going to use for 2-sided, et cetera, but you have a bundle item too. And the bundle item is really just a collection of products that you sell together, right? It's not a build assembly. You're not building it and breaking it. And the actual cost and the sales price of the bundle is inherited from the component parts. Now, I can overwrite it on the invoice or sales receipt when I'm selling it, but that's about it. The bundle's locked into the cost of the component parts and the total of the, for the revenue that you're going to get from those parts as well, or the sales price, I should say. But it's still a group item. It's most akin to exactly as a group item in, say, Pro, right? But not a build assembly. But these are kind of the 4 subtypes within products and service. And you can see also on the item, let me go back to that raised dog bed, I have a reorder point, right? It's not a min or a max. It's just when it hits below 10, it'll start turning to low stock. And then when it's at 0 or less, hopefully it's not ever negative, but you know what I mean? It's going to turn into out of stock. And I can batch purchase from this window, assuming it's the same vendor, which I am going to do for sure. Now, there's a couple things to mention as well. You can make a quantity adjustment and a starting value adjustment with items for QBO Plus. Starting value is just a periodic value adjustment. It's like Woody entered a bunch of items when we started the file. He had the wrong cost for 10 of them, so I'm going to change the value back in time to based on the cost of that. It's not meant to be a ongoing value adjustment, right? Quantity adjustment is its own transaction where I'm just changing the quantity, and you can, choose a shrinkage account or something like that. So, and then here's SKU and here's category. Now, you can assign a default class to your items and a preferred vendor as well. Those are also new features that we added. So when you go purchase it from the item list, it'll fill in the preferred vendor for you, and the class will fill out on the sales or cost form, so you don't forget the class track, right? So we just added a few things. You can add a picture, but it doesn't show up on the sales transaction. And then SKU, a lot of people use for different things. I'm just leaving it as SKU. Okay, that's a 3-sided item. That's inventory part there. Now, I wanted to go quickly to categories. Categories is a way, it's kind of like your parent-child item relationship in desktop, where you'd have the parent item, then you make a bunch of sub-items. So basically the items will be under categories. And that's the feature that it's replacing, but it's really quick to find it on the sales transaction. Category is just really a list element, right? It's you're just naming it and you can do subcategories. But I'm able to assign items to a particular category. As you can see, I can filter by a particular category, just dog and cat toys, or I think we're doing pet furniture today. And if my list has 100 items, if you have thousands of items, being able to filter by a category might help as well. Like I said, you can do a search in the item field on the sales form for the particular category, right? All right, we'll go back to low stock. I'm going to purchase these in a batch way just to show the partial receiving against purchase order, then we'll sell it, then we'll look at some reporting, and then we'll send it over to Dale to see what SOS can do beyond that with all these features that we don't have, even something like not having unit of measure, right? But my theme is your client doesn't have to stay with desktop just for unit of measure, right? We have SOS. Right? They can fill that gap. Okay, so batch action, they're all the same vendor, so I'm going to click reorder. And we'll do the big pet vendor, I think. Typical one. Now, you can hover over the quantity field, and it shows the quantity you currently have and the reorder point. However, with SOS, I'd be able to see the current availability as well, based on what's on other purchase orders and sales orders, not just current quantity on hand, okay? I think that's important. The sales order fulfillment workflow, I think, is critical for most of your inventory, niche clients for sure. So based on that, though, I'm going to do, bring in 5, and I'll just bring in 10 here and save it. Okay, copy to the bill. I'm going to use a bill in this case just because I want to do some partial receiving, just so you know. So I'll say that on the bill, now this is posting, right? This is going to increment my inventory, and it's going to credit accounts payable, right? So, but not COGS. Remember, COGS can be debited when you sell it. So we'll say you brought in all 5 here, but only 5 of these, right? We'll go ahead and save the bill. Go back to the link transaction. Now, by the way, if you ever want to know what's happening behind the scenes, well, I'll show that on the sales form. But there's a More tab here, and then Transaction Journal. That's your kind of debit and credits behind any transaction type. It's helpful, though. We'll show it on the sales when it actually debits COGS. So I'm going to go back to the purchase order, and as you can see down here, these are closed, and then I've received 5 against the 10 I ordered, so I still have 5 left to receive. So it gives me another option to copy a bill, or if I was going to a credit card expense or a check or something under the plus sign, right? I put in the vendor name, it's going to say, hey, you got to open purchase orders in the drawer, and then I can move it in, right? Now we're going to go ahead and sell on a sales receipt the raised dog bed, and we'll sell it to Christina, right? And I can start looking at, just type pet furniture, and that'll bring up, again, the category. So it's a quick way to find items, or you can always quick type. Like instead, I could just do dog bed or raised dog bed. I think it's an R. Yeah, raised dog bed. There you go. And again, when I hover over, it's going to tell me what I have. So now I have the quantity of 14, right? Because I bought 10 of them from before, right? And it does show I do have a quantity on purchase order, but again, it's that sales order visibility because there's no sales order workflow within QBO Plus that I feel like I'm missing out on, okay? So let's say they bought 1 of them. We'll click Save. More transaction journal. I just want to show the debit credit behind the scenes of the transaction. So undeposited funds, because that's where the sales receipt's going to, right? I can group my payments into one lump sum deposit from the plus sign, make deposit. So undeposited funds, I know it's not a default preference like in desktop. However, on the sales receipt or the customer payment window, that field, deposit to field, will remain sticky. So you can choose undeposited funds, and it will remember that next time. Just know that if you're seeing a lot of singular payments deposited, that's probably because your client chose like the checking account on either the sales receipt or the customer payment window. So do go look there from time to time when you see that. Right? Revenue, credited, COGS, debited. Right? And it's going to be debited by the purchase price in the lot that I particularly purchased it. I don't mean lot tracking. That's also SOS, serial and lot number tracking. I mean, with FIFO, it's based on the cost when I bought it. And then QBO does a calculation there. So it's first in, first out method. And then, of course, inventory asset was credited. The inventory was decremented. So you can always see the journal of what's happening behind the transaction just by clicking on the More tab at the bottom of any saved transaction, Transaction Journal. And that might help there as well. Now, if I go to the sales receipt, in the rate field, drop down, you can see that I have Dale's discount from today. So the default sales rate for a raised dog bed is $129, right, each. And Dale's is 25% off, so $96.75. Now I'm going to right-click the tab I'm on, duplicate, and let's talk about price levels. And then we'll go into reporting, and then I'll transition over to Dale and SOS inventory. So you can get multiple windows. Just right-click the one you're on. It gives you another one. X out of where you are. And we're going to go to All Lists. Another way to get there, under Products and Services, we've been over categories, right? And then price rules. This is essentially like price levels in desktop. However, it's more akin to Premier, plus I can track by date range. So if you didn't know this exists, it is in beta and it's a setting. I showed you it's a sales setting you can turn on, but you have to have plus in order to turn on price rules, right? But akin to price levels. Let's go into Dale's discount here that I did for today. And why it's more like Premier. Now, Enterprise has the quantity discounting, right? And I'm sure SOS has something like that, and we can ask Dale about that too if you want. Pro is just a fixed percent, right? So I have a fixed percent, so the price rules match that for sure. However, I can also do a custom price per item, which is a Premier level feature with price levels. Okay, so really the price rule functionality within QBO Plus is more like Premier, but within one advantage in that this price rule is only going to go from today through tomorrow. So you can do it by date range. Right? And I can also choose, individual customers, or I can do just dog lovers or cat lovers because it turns on this customer type field at the customer level. And we'll come back here. Let me just go there right now. Click yes, and then we'll go to sales and customers, and we'll just drill in on Christina here, and I'll edit her. And you can see under additional info, there's a customer type field. Right. So, and this is a feature request. People wanted the customer type in here in QBO. It's something that's supported with desktop. It's just another metric you can filter a report by and add a column by in some reports, mostly the detail level reports, right? Like sales by products and service detail. That would be a great way to filter a group by customer type, or sales by customer detail. Those reports. So they would flow over to that. Not so much on the, though I can add it as a column to the inventory valuation detail, it doesn't allow me to filter by it. But still, customer type, another metric that I can use to change or filter or direct a report to, and I think that's critical, kind of like SKU. Think of what you could use this for. So customer type also is that when I go back to just customers, right there, this is where you add your list. So you can, as long as you turn price rules on, you can have customer type, and that could be helpful for you for sure. So I can filter for just a particular customer type, as well as what item type is it. Is it all products and services, which I did, or I think I just did inventory, but you could do services, non-inventory, and I can filter by category, right? So I could just do this price rule for dog and cat toys. So this is just functionality QBO had not had, and you need plus for it, but I think this is very helpful for sure. So I kept it at all inventory, decrease, or increase by, and there's some rounding, and you apply it. Now you can see the adjusted price, right? And because it's the 26th, when I was on that sales receipt, I got the Dale's discount, right? Okay, lastly, let's look at some key reporting, right? So we've gone over three-sided items. I guess I should show you just this. I want to make sure I'm going to filter by bundle, right? I think I have a groom and board, yeah. Again, this is a group item. And you can use this not just for product-based businesses, but for service-based too. Contractors love this one because what it does allow me to do, to not check this box so that it will not display the bundle components when printing or sending the transaction to the customer. Like, here are my component parts. It's not a build assembly, but it allows me to put these four components, and just on the sales receipt or invoice, it'll just show the sales information or the name of the item, the bundle item. And the sales price is just inheriting whatever the default sales price is, or based on price rule for that day for this particular component parts that are part of the bundle. Right? So it's a group item. Make sure you saw that. That is supported as well. Two-sided items, really that's just, me turning on. Let me see if I can do a non-inventory part and see if there's something in there, right? This is where I can turn on the sales price and the cost of goods sold or expense account. That's two-sided items. Also, you need plus for that, okay? But I know we're focused mostly on inventory here today, and now there's only one left. It's low stock, a kick toy bunny. Now, quickly, let's go to reports, and then we'll hand it over to SOS. Some key item-related reports, right? And whether your clients have the new kind of business report center or the older one, they're all going to look like this anyway. And if you go down to sales and customers, here's where we've moved all the inventory item-based reporting, right? So I have an inventory valuation detail and a summary report. I'm going to look at both of these and then quickly the sales by product service detail, and we'll be done with my section. You do have a physical inventory worksheet and a product and service list report. We'll go to the summary report. It's just a valuation summary, right? SKU, quantity, asset value, calculated average. So we do that based on FIFO rules. Can't add many columns to this at all, right? Opens in expanded mode, the date range as of, and I can just look at all non-zeros or something like that. So very summary, not a whole lot of customization, but it shows my asset value calculated average of all the inventory parts. Now, the other report that's more flexible in customization would be the valuation detail. Now, detail reports by default are going to have more columns to add. So I have date, transaction, number, name, quantity, rate, FIFO cost. We named this just to help with clarity on what you're looking at. Quantity on hand and asset value. I can also add, if I click the little gear icon, pet name, sales rep, pet kind. These are my custom fields. So we should also filter by, right? And then I have SKU. If someone wants to use that for something other than just SKU, it might be manufacturer part number. The service date is something that you'd find as well. So there's this report too, which allows me to do some filtering. And then finally, we have what I like, the sales by product and service detail. You can do a lot with this. I can filter by a particular category, a lot of columns that I can add to this report as well. And remember, there's just 3 custom fields on the sales form with QBO, right? So the top part of the form. So I'm sure SOS can have a lot more fields that will be available, et cetera. And it's a good time actually to bring Dale in. Dale, I'm going to change you as a presenter. And so you should be able to share out. And again, the goal is that we aligned on what QBO Plus has from an inventory standpoint, items, and mostly around inventory. But, you know, you and I both know for this other functionality, a lot of it to me seems fundamental, like unit of measure, build assemblies. That's not going to be in QBO. So SOS does that and more. So I'm just going to let you take it from there, and I will handle any questions. And thanks a lot.
Thanks, Woody. So just out of curiosity, just so I know what screen, because I got 2 monitors, are you seeing the feature requests and that's it?
I am. Good. Yep. Home feature request window.
I just wanted to make sure you're seeing the right one. So this is SOS inventory, and I'm gonna show you a lot of the features that we have for our product as well as the inventory, since the inventory is the biggest thing that we're gearing on today. And for inventory structures, the best thing that we have for any company that comes to us is that we are multi-location, very detailed. We have advanced inventory, just like you'd find in the larger products, the desktop and the enterprise, where you can start looking at serialized inventory, lot tracked inventory. There's a lot of things that we can actually see within our system, as well as I can have a location that's bin tracked. So now I can break down that warehouse by the bins and actually have that information readily at my fingertips during all my transactions to know what bin I'm pulling it from or seeing what bin it's in. And as Woody mentioned, we also have the price tiers and units of measure. We're going to take a look at those on the transactions so you get a good chance to see what that's going to do for you. Just to start out, just for settings alone, we are a bidirectional sync with QuickBooks, so we can keep track of anything that's entered in their side comes to us. Anything entered, or most things that are entered into SOS, can go up to QuickBooks Online. We do have sales orders that's above and beyond QuickBooks Online, so that stays within us. But you can change what sync you want, whether it be directional or automated. It's up to you. We also still have the class tracking, department tracking that we share with QuickBooks. And it's very easy to get all that set up. For the inventory tracking itself, some of the key things is we do have 3 different valuation methods. We do offer the FIFO by default, but we also have weighted average. And for those very unique customers, we do have last in, first out as well. But that's very few industries. And that one you have to let us set for you, because that's only for specific industries, as I just mentioned. The other things that we can do with the settings is whether you have the option of whether to let your inventory go negative or block it from going negative. So you have full control over everything in your system. as well as setting the default accounts, default titles for forms, and so forth. But to turn on units of measure, it's just a simple click of the button here. We also have job tracking, where you can also turn on track workers on our Pro plan. Now, those are the high advanced areas where units of measure is on our middle plan and above. That's the units of measure. And then on the plus and above, we also have rental inventory. That's going to give that flexibility of, if you have someone out there that not only has parts that they sell, but they also need to rent it out for different products, this is also a good feature for consignment inventory. So it's something to take a look at within the system. The other thing that's unique about our system when you're looking at serial number tracking is that we have an option for valuing serials by specific ID, which means if I want this high dollar piece of equipment, this electronics piece of equipment, a computer that we're bringing into the system, and I want to make sure that the value I bring it in, since I'm going to modify, add the other cards, other things to it before selling it to the customer, I want that original value to be my starting point and stay with that computer. I can have that as a serial tracked item, check that box, and now if I brought it in at $900, it's going to stay $900. And as I do the manufacturing against it, it'll add to the value starting at that 900. So it gives you a little bit of a control over serialized inventory. So from our main screen, it's just going to be showing you, we're pretty much like QuickBooks here. We got the settings and all the information for your company on the upper right, and then all your day-to-day transactions. But for anything that you're connecting to, it's all just one menu. So you can control your inventory, your purchasing, your sales. There's a lot to this because our sales settings allow you to change different things based on what you want to see with things going to and from QuickBooks when it's based on inventory and structures in that respect. We do connect to other systems as well, but that you can take a look at from our website. For anything dealing with inventory, the biggest things are multi-locations, setting up those locations, making sure you're going to track them as either bin tracked if you want to have a warehouse that you're tracking via bins. We even have the ability to set up a location as non-nettable. That makes those numbers, the quantities there, not available for sale. So that way you can use promotional items that you're giving away. Or in this case, we've got companies that want to track in-transit information, such as they've got a purchaser they purchased from China, and they have to take possession of that inventory from the moment that it hits the water before it even gets to customs across the water. So they have the ability to maintain that control over their goods even before it gets here. And then once it gets here, they just transfer it from the in-transit location to whatever warehouse they need or whatever other location that they need. So working with that, and I'll show you on the forms how that comes into play. But we also have the ability to add custom fields. Depending on what plan you're on, depends on how many you get. The Pro plan gets unlimited custom fields, so you can add those to your items, add them to your forms. And if the custom fields have the same names as the ones used on QuickBooks, such as on the invoice, you add a custom field called Customer PO. On our side, if that Customer PO is also listed as a custom field, then it'll translate that data over to QuickBooks, so that will stay with the invoice all the way through. We do have automated order processing, which allows you to take a sales order, and if you know that certain sales orders based on either a customer or certain conditions, you want to automatically have it go through that full process where now I'm going to mark the goods as shipped and pull them out of inventory, create an invoice to go up to QuickBooks. You can set it any way you need to include notifying people of what's going on, because we do have notifications in our system, so you can actually let people know, hey, you need to take action on this as a follow-on to that option. But for our inventory, since you see it's multi-locational, I also wanted to show you that our detail for our inventory is quite extensive. It not only gives you the name, but you can see the type of item that it is, and we have quite a few more items available to you. We have the item group, which is pretty much like the bundle on QuickBooks Online. It's your way of grouping items that you can state, I want to sell these all at once. So the item group will go on the sales form. The only difference is you can actually set what sales price you want as part of the definition instead of letting it add up the sales prices of everything else. So it gives you that control up front without having to worry about it later on. We do break out our service items into both service and expense, so you know which ones you pay for and which ones your customers are going to pay for. A little more control over that. And then we also have other types as well. When you define an item, it's going to give you that option to get into things like an assembly, where this is what you're going to be performing manufacturing on. This is something you're building, where the bill of materials can be other parts that are in the system. It could be labor types, could be service fees you're going to add into the value of that item, or it could be other assembly items. You can go as many levels deep as you need to with sub-assemblies to be able to create that finished good. We do have the categories, so you can assign items to categories as well, including defining the categories that you need. Sales prices and purchase cost, everything is there that you would normally see. We even have a separate purchase description if needed on the purchase orders from the sales description. If you just have a standard, it'll go on both. And then this is where you're going to state whether you can track it by serial number or track by lot. So it's one or the other, and it's mostly based on the product type. Serial numbers are usually for electronics, equipment. We actually have auto dealers that will track use the serial number block for the VIN number, so they can track an individual item in their system, an individual car. And then lot numbers are for chemicals, pharmaceuticals, food. We have quite a few manufacturers that do all that. And when you do lot tracking, I'll show you a little bit later on, you can actually set expiration dates and even get supported documentation through a recall in our system as well. We do have barcoding in our system, so it's just entering the barcode in here or scanning it in, and it'll show you what the barcode looks like. Adding a picture to the information, preferred vendor and their part number. So when you put this item on a purchase order, it's going to start out with that vendor. That vendor's information. You can always have multiple vendors, because we do have a vendor item catalog, and I want to show you that real quick, where it's just listing here, so you can actually see all the different vendors for that item, as well as their costs and their part numbers. So it makes it a lot easier to do the purchasing side of the coin. You can give a starting inventory and what that value is, and a starting date and location. So it gives you all that capability. Reorder points and max stock levels, so you can state when it hits a certain point and goes below it, that it's going to go on the reorder report. Max stock level is what do I need to bring in on a purchase order to get it up to appropriate for my warehouses. And that's all going to be computed on a reorder report, so you can see exactly what you need. And if this item goes on a reorder report and it's got a preferred vendor, you can actually generate the purchase orders from that report for any item on that list that has that same vendor. And it'll use that reorder point and max stock level to actually give you suggested quantities on the PO. So it's a little bit flexible in that respect. You can assign default classes, even restrict what forms these items are going to go on, because you may have a raw material that you're purchasing for an assembly build, but you're never going to sell it directly to a customer. So you can take it off sales forms, so no one will accidentally sell that part for you. And then, of course, tags and notes, last few fields. Tags are just a different way to search for an item instead of a category. So instead of grouping items by category, you may want, such as I'm a furniture manufacturer, and I want to define my items by, I want to see all my items that are cedar. So I may just have cedar as a tag, and that way I can group my items by that filter. And all of that's done through this main list here. You can filter by type, category, the tags. You just type in the tag you want. You can show by either whether it's archived or not archived. We have a lot of clothing manufacturers that are using this feature because they have different lines. They have fall, summer, winter, and maybe the only one they want to have showing to their salespeople right now are the summer lines. So they'll archive all the fall and the winter items and not have to worry about it. And that's really easy to do, because then you just have a category for fall, summer, winter to show just the items that are for the category fall. And then you can do a batch select and actually archive all those items under batch actions. So it gives you a really good flow to anything that you're working with. And the other thing is, we can show just the available numbers, the in-stock numbers, and so forth at one location. By default, you're going to have the conglomerate numbers of everything in your warehouse or all your warehouses, but if you need to see just a single location, you can do that as well. So these numbers you're going to see what's completely in stock, what's available for sale, what's on sales orders, and on purchase orders and even more. But anything that's in blue is a quick link, so now I can see all the sales orders that this item is on, whether it's been shipped or not, who it's going to, and then I can even drill down even farther just by clicking on the magnifying glass to go directly to that order and process that order. So lots of good information as well as, and this gets extensive, you can actually select what columns you want to see here. I might want to see the descriptions or the categories or what vendors these items are being purchased from mostly. I can see what's on sales receipts, on returns, work orders, rentals, you name it, we can show it. It's got any field you want. And then once you select what fields you're looking at and what filters you're looking at, you can take that screen of information and now send it out to an Excel spreadsheet or a PDF. So you got custom reporting built right into the items list without even having to go to a specific report. So it works out really well. Looking at the time real quick, there we go. So the two things that always come in to everything for a company is we're always going to be purchasing goods and we're always going to be selling goods. So on the purchasing side, on our purchase orders, I pre-created one to Burt's Appliances that I'll share with you here. And this is just stating I've got from Burt, I'm going to get one freezer and 2 bags of lemons. Now this is where units of measure come into place because lemons I've assigned units of measure. And let's take a look at that real quick so you get to see that. So I'm just going to look up lemons. And it's going to bring that list of anything that has the word lemons in it up to me. So now I can take a look at this item. And the items have a lot of things you can do. You can look at a rental history if you need to, a transaction history, anything transaction that belongs on. Location settings are nice because this allows you to set reorder points by location. So you're not limited to just saying, I want to see the stock overall for reorder. If you got 2 warehouses and you only want to key on one warehouse, you can. And then units of measure allows you to set what the base unit is. So the base unit for lemons is each. But for conversion, well, I buy them in a bag of 5 or a box of 50. So I can define what my current sales prices and purchase costs are. And then these get updated by your transactions as you use that particular conversion, or the item gets updated if you just leave it at the base conversion. So going back to the purchase order, here I can see I've ordered 1 freezer and 2 bags of lemons. So it brings up the appropriate prices, and all I have to do is make sure I put in the appropriate quantities. So it keeps track of everything you need. You can set the terms for that vendor. This will come up by default with whatever that vendor's been listed as. You can put in, if you know when the vendor is going to ship and you know how they're shipping it and all that tracking information, you always come back and put in the expected dates, the shipping information, anything you need to. You can show a deposit that has been put down to that vendor for this order. And then you can also set departments and other pieces of information for this, such as I might make this a blanket purchase order, a contract purchase order, or for that matter, this may be a drop ship directly to one of my customers. So you've got a lot of control over how you want to purchase or set up this purchase for the system. And then we send up this purchase order to QuickBooks Online. The other thing I mentioned earlier, default costs. If I change this cost and the system detects that it's different than what's in the definition, it will go and update that definition for you. So with all that information in the purchase order, now I just have to send that off to the customer, and it's just emailing that to the vendor. And now I've got a lot of other options that I can do from this purchase order. And the biggest thing is just receiving it. So if I want to receive my goods, I just have to click on receive from the purchase order. It creates an item receipt, and this is the key. This is where I can do my partial receiving. Maybe I only got the freezer in and I didn't get the lemons, so I can delete that line off of this transaction, and it will update the purchase order showing that I've only received in the freezer, and I don't have to worry about the lemons at that point. I just do another receive from the purchase order, and it'll create an item receipt with just the lemons on it because it's only going to show me what's left to receive. But this is where, if it's a serial number item, I can put in the serial number. If I've got a lot to load in, such as I may have to load in 50 of these freezers, I can actually upload a CSV file with all the serial numbers in that the vendor might have sent me, so I don't have to worry about typing them in or scanning them in one at a time. And then for the lemons, this is where I can put in my lot ID of my choice. and put in my expiration date. Now you also have the ability to, if maybe at the time these goods are coming in, you are assigning your own serial numbers and your own lots, you can also have them automatically generate the numbers for you. So lots of control. Again, units of measure are here as well. And also your payment method. Do you want to have a bill generated up to QuickBooks Online, or was this a cash, check, or credit card purchase? And it'll annotate it any way you need to make sure all the information gets up to QuickBooks Online. This item receipt puts the goods in the inventory and then allows the bill to put the proper value into the inventory asset account or any account that are assigned to those items. Now the other feature we have on our Pro plan, other costs, I can put freight and other things down here that may be fees, international companies, VAT fees, anything else that they need. You can list different vendors if it's not the vendor that you need to pay up top, and whether you need an additional bill because you've got a different vendor. Once you do that, this will generate the appropriate documentation up to QuickBooks Online, but this is landed cost, true landed cost. It'll now take these items, add them up, and spread that value out amongst the items that I'm bringing in. So now I've got true landed costs on my items, and I don't have to worry about adding them in during manufacturing.
Hey, Dale?
Yes.
I had a quick question from one of the attendees regarding the SKU number. I think it's part number in SOS. That goes on the PO to the vendor, like the vendor would see it?
So, well, this particular column, let me bring this up again. So this part number in the definition is the vendor part number. So this is not going to be your SKU. You can't, if you want the SKU to go to it, we also have the ability to modify form templates, and you can add the SKU field to the template. So now when you email it to the vendor, they will get that. But otherwise, this is that vendor's part number.
Awesome. No, that answers the question. And then one other from Mia. Whenever a purchase order or receipt, item receipt, I'm assuming, of goods is being uploaded to QBO, does it come in as a purchase order or a journal entry? Like, what is the transaction like on the other side?
So when you save an item receipt, it actually comes up as, it'll come up as both, because normally if you, let's go to an item receipt here. So receive this guy again. So if I was going to an item receipt and this was a bill, it's going to send it up as a bill to affect your accounts. So the bill is going to make the annotation into the accounts. It's going to be the accounts payable and whatever the accounts are needed for the items on that bill. So it's going to be going up in that respect. Cash, check, and credit card should be going up as appropriate journal entries into the accounts that are listed in your settings for purchasing.
Awesome, thanks. Oh, and the original PO, does that just stay in SOS or does that go over too?
No, that goes over too. This purchase order will sync up to QuickBooks, and anytime, so once it's completely fulfilled and closed, it'll send up that information to close it on QBO as well.
Awesome.
Now, if something's been
received, I know this.
Yeah.
Inventory is totally turned off in QBO when you're using SOS. That's still the case, right?
Correct. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Quantity on hand tracking would be completely turned off. So we'd be the sole person that's managing those accounts. So all that information will be on our side. So for the item receipts, just to show you this received column, as things are being received, I can tell when all of it's been received and what item receipt it's on, or because I can do partial receiving, here I can see this one was completely received, but it was done via 2 item receipts to be able to close it out. And these are all links. And again, any list, you can choose what columns you need to look at. You can filter any list any way you need to, by vendor, by status, whether they're archived or not, because you can archive transactions so your lists are smaller. And then you also have other actions, getting a PDF of it, emailing it to the vendor, even creating an invoice. If this is a drop ship PO, you would need to create the invoice to the customer as well. So you can do that there. Also, any of our transactions, a lot of people don't want to, if they've built a purchase order that has 50 items on it, and they need to do that again, and it's the same 50 items or close enough where all they have to do is manage 1 or 2, they may not want to do it all over again, so you can just use a template. And once you do a use as template, it'll copy that PO to a new PO with today's date, a new number, and all the items on it ready for you to just edit and go. So the item receipts will be on a separate list. You can always go back there. We do have the ability to return items to vendors and do a vendor credit memo, so that's pretty easy in that respect. The other things I didn't talk about with the inventory items, this is where you'd go to do adjustments based on value and quantities, and even decide which is going to be your target adjustment account. It's always going to hit the inventory accounts of the items that you're adjusting, but the other one could be shrinkage, could be opening balance equity, could be a lot. Could be going directly to COGS. Transfers between locations, and the great thing about transfers is you can even put in the shipping cost if it's if you have to pay freight to get it between the 2 points, and then generate the bill to that shipping vendor right from the transfer. Serial items. This is great because now I can go out here, see all my serial numbers, what it is, where it's located, number of things. We even have warranties that you can set up for serialized inventory. And then you get a full history, like this one was built on this date, on this build transaction, and then transferred from this warehouse on this transfer from Texas to another warehouse. And there's my value of that product. So you get a full track of everything you need to see there. And then on the lots, for government, keeping up with government policy, we do allow you to set expiration dates and show that a recall was done. Such this was a recall on berries that we brought in and sold out, and you have a full transaction history that shows that there was some adjusted in, some were received in. We used them for bills, transferred in between locations. The one thing that's not showing though, and I really need to see that, is it shows, I should have found one beforehand. If they were shipped out to customers, then you would be able to see a list of all the customers that this went to. So that way, there we go. So this was shipped to all these customers. So if this particular batch of lemonade was recalled, and I traced it back from one of these customers to this particular batch, I can now notify all the other customers that it's been recalled, mark it as recalled, and that way I've got a full tracking of that particular information.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That history there, that activity history is just awesome. The visibility, again, I just always impressed by what you guys are doing versus what we're not seeing in QBO. You know?
Oh, yeah. And even for items, just to give you a quick on the transaction history, everything that's ever happened to this particular item, received, used in builds, shipped, everything's tracked there, so you get a full idea of what the variance is, what the cost per unit is, your total cost basis, all the entities and locations that were involved. So it's pretty detailed. Even bins have been tracked, and other information can be on there as well. So,
and if I could ask one more question, Dale. Sorry.
Okay.
Rick's asked, can other, I believe the answer is yes, I want to make sure, can other fulfillment costs, such as freight, out, or third-party costs be added to the product cost, the item cost?
If you're on the Pro plan and adding that in at time of receipt, yes, that goes down in the other costs, and that's part of the landed costs. Now, if it's something that that you're paying for separately as a separate item, and you need that going in at time of manufacturing, then that's all part of the build. So if I had an assembly item, let's see, I'm going to change this, show type, assembly, and apply, clear the lemons because I don't have that. So I can have an assembly item where I'm going to list its bill of materials, and you can actually have like restocking fees, freight expenses, labor charges, all that can be included as part of your bill of materials. So when you actually go out here and do the build of an item, then all that is going to be brought up as part of that build's inputs. So it's just going to be choose what you're building, give the quantity, update the inputs. It brings up the bill of material with all the appropriate numbers to make sure you can see at a glance if you have enough in stock, and then provide any additionals. If all of a sudden there's something else you need to add in there, other fees, you can add them at time of build as well. Other manufacturing that we have are work in progress, the very large manufacturing companies. So you can actually do a process transaction, and a process transaction allows you to keep track of multiple things. You can have multiple inputs as well as multiple outputs. A lot of things that people are looking at is I may have had multiple freezers going in, let's say. This is better for if I had found one for lemonade. But say I've got 2 freezers going in, but 1 freezer got busted, so I can't do anything with that freezer. I can mark it as waste and put it back out as waste. And it gives you that ability to track all that detail. So process transactions, that's going to be the work in process type, well, both are work in process type manufacturing. That's just going to give you work centers. And work centers are just going to be the availability of, I want to know if my product is in production or if it's finished goods. And if I build a work center called production or anything else for that matter, as long as it's not finished goods, it will only relieve the raw materials until someone comes back to this transaction and says, yep, it's done, it's now finished goods, now your outputs get shown. So it gives you that over time type manufacturing. For sales, I just want to quickly go through the work order because I know I'm running out of time. So this I'll only take about a minute left here. So I'm looking at sales orders for a certain customer at this point because I've got the list filtered so we can go through this. But I built a sales order that has to this customer where I've put in the lemony lemons, I'm doing 40 each lemons. So I've got that ability to put that in here. I can see what's been picked on pick tickets, what's shipped already, and what's invoiced already. I can set different due dates, anything you need to work with, discounts, shipping, taxes, as well as deposits. It's all here. I can even do sales reps in our system, so I can set which sales rep I want to associate with this order, and I can even set that sales rep up to be a certain commission. And then again, the units of measure, like you saw with those lemons, I was doing it by the bag. The one thing I didn't state is you just define your units here. And the other thing I haven't shown yet on the sales orders is I can actually set it up for a price tier. So for this customer, right now, if I put them on the list, it comes up as list price. So there's no price tier applied. But I can define any price tier I need to, whether it be I want an overall discount, or I have a specific list just for this customer of what they're going to be paying for these items. Excuse me. Or I can do quantity buys. So I can actually state if they buy 1 of this item, it's this price. If they buy 2 to 5 of this item, it's this price. 6 to 10, it's another price. So I can define those quantity buys as well, and that's just defining them in the price tier list here. Or the other data tools I didn't mention, I can bulk edit any of the major pieces of our system. So I can add price tiers en masse via spreadsheet, as well as items, customers, and vendors. For customers, the one thing that's unique on them is I can put them on credit hold. So now if you try to get a sale put in the form, it says no, you can't do a new sale for this customer because they're on credit hold. And then the other thing that's unique is everybody keeps asking about multiple addresses. I've got a billing address, but I need 3 or 4 different shipping addresses. Well, you can now do that. We've actually got, that's customer history, sorry. You got the ability to define as many addresses as you want and what type of addresses there can be, either billing, shipping, or other. And that way you can select them as you're building the forms, such as the sales order. You can actually list, and even on the invoice, I'll just show you here, I can actually list whichever one I want. So if I go to Frankenstein's, let's see, he's only got the default shipping address. So, but if he had multiple addresses, I just pick the one I need to go into at that point. And I can even do that in the billing address side if they have multiple billing addresses. So that's going to give you the rundown of everything. I mean, we've given you inventory at multiple locations. We've given you very detailed inventory, and you have full control over any of it at any point in time. So Woody, back to you for questions.
Yeah, Dale, and thanks for that. What about reporting? If you can just drill in there, what kind of reports are available?
Okay, so for the reporting, we do have anything from a stock status and valuation, and these can be, I mean, either total numbers, you can look at a specific location. If you choose all, you get a grid of these are all my items, these are all my locations, so you get a grid of all the the quantities, so you get really detailed information. You can choose either a certain time frame that you want to go for or put in a specific date. You can do it by category. You can even do it with a partial name. I might want to see anything that has the word widget in it. And then for that matter, if I do special tracking, I can go to a specific location, and if this is a bin location, I might want to show it by bin so I can see all the bins that my items are in. And if it's a lot tracked, if I want to see the lots at that location for items, I can just show lots, and it'll show me any items that have lots and what lots they're in. So it gives you quite a bit of different ways to view your stock, your valuation. You can do item analysis, which gives you the current cost, current sales price, the net margin, and the return rate. So you have all that information at your fingertips. The item movement shows you the flow through the system, so you can see which ones are your big movers and shakers. And then any other reports that you need, price books for the tiers, profit loss by item. Lots of information is available to you at the drop of a hat. Reorder points and back order reports. It gives you quite a lot of detail. And anything that's not on here, great. Let's just go up here to the export data tool and export anything in the system to a spreadsheet. And I can even do that by date range. So now I can do custom reports via Excel.
No, that's awesome. I just wanted to make sure they saw a little bit on reporting, because it's just really robust. You know, I have a few notes that things I saw that I felt were just critical. I know you went over them, and we'll go over a couple minutes if it's okay with everybody, and then I'm going to ask Dale about the price of SOS and different training and implementation, what SOS has to offer from that. But fail-safe to prevent items from going negative, job tracking, WIP, manufacturing process, auto build assembly, so the exploding bombs, I think as you guys call it in the industry, so that's supported, tracking rental items in consignment, sales rep commissions, recall as well, and returns. Yep. Landed costs, where you could put the labor, freight, everything in at the item receipt level and in the assembly level too. The activity history on items I thought was awesome, just to be able to see it all listed there on the page. And then you guys have very sophisticated pricing tiers, quantity buys, and then of course the sales order fulfillment. So those are just some takeaways that I saw throughout just your half hour, 35 minutes there. It's just a lot.
There's a huge amount of capabilities, and we didn't even cover all of it. I mean, there's a lot more I could go into, and I just tried to steer away from some things.
Sure.
There's quite a few other things in our product, including a dashboard and a calendar. So you can actually see, these must ship. I've got lots that are expiring, all kinds of stuff.
So scheduling too. Wow, that's awesome. So yeah, if someone wanted more training or has a client in particular in mind, they want to stay on QBO and not go back to desktop, you know, what kind of, the pricing, and then what kind of webinar or training do you guys have?
So for our 3 plans, this is our 3 plans right now, Companion, Plus, and Pro. Anybody's just got a basic inventory and wants sales orders, assemblies, this is going to be the Companion plan. That's a single location. Plus is going to give them the unlimited locations, serial and lot tracking, barcoding. This is all the detailed advanced inventory. And then Pro is for the high-level manufacturing. This is going to give them all their work-in-progress style manufacturing, process transactions, job costing, work orders. That's all there, as well as we even have a customer portal for customers to track their sales that are in our system at that current point in time. For training and implementation, we're working on that right now. We're currently going through meetings to preview some new things coming up very shortly, like within the next month. We are putting together training packages and training videos to be either viewed online or actually be instructor-led, and those should be starting live around the first week of August for the training sessions, and we'll have those all published on our website. For implementation, we've got our 24/7 email and Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Central help desk that can give you help with anything that's going through. But the great thing that we've added to our system, and what we always put in the system, is we have all kinds of training videos that are already out there. So we have a lot of information available at your fingertips, so you can see what it does in the system as training in that respect. But then we also have how-to guides, such as I need to add a new user, and it gives you that step-by-step through the system.
Oh, that's great.
Even in printable version. And then our user's guide, we even gave you more help set up. We have a section in our user's guide that actually walks you through a new QuickBooks Online account, new SOS account, what all the steps are to get that started, and then adding a new SOS account to an existing QuickBooks Online account and all the things that you need. And even with that respect, if you get to a step and don't quite know what needs to be done, you just call our help desk.
That's awesome. Great. And I'm assuming SOS.com? SOSinventory.com, right.
It
Got
is.
it. SOSinventory.com.
www.sosinventory.com. Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's also on apps.com, or if you guys are in QBO, you can go to the apps tab and just search for SOS or filter for inventory management. It's the first one that shows up there. So again, the oldest app that connects to QBO. So Dale, just thanks so much for your time today. I know we went a few minutes over. I'm going to stop the recording at this time.